Hello, class. I hope you enjoyed your week. Before we get into Chapter 2, Culture and Social Structure, I do want to deal with the quiz from last time, which was about race and ethnicity. This quiz was just based on completion, so it was not about what you got right or what you got wrong. I wanted to discuss that with you guys as a class. So there was 5 questions, and I'm going to go over each one. The first question was as far as the characteristics that the Greeks felt distinguished them from barbarians. Was it customs? Was it language? Was it skin color? Was it religion? As far as the Greeks were concerned, what made someone a barbarian was actually whether they spoke the Greek language or not. And I really highlight and emphasize that fact because we think of ourselves as being broken off amongst racial groups here in America. I mean, we're used to filling out those sort of questions in the census, but it really is a superficial type of categorization. We could have broken ourselves off amongst anything. We just happen to choose something such as skin color. The second question, which continent has the greatest human genetic diversity? Now, I know some people might have chosen North America. After all, it's the melting pot. And so I think that would probably be a natural assumption. But the truth of the matter is, Africa has the most genetic diversity. Um, and that is because it is the cradle of civilization. So much of our genetic code as human beings comes from there. In fact, the Fertile Crescent, which is located in Africa, if you look in that area, you see almost a perfect blend of people, which looks like they are of any and every racial category. Question number 3. Which two populations are most likely on average to be genetically similar? There was a list given whether it was Chinese and Lakota or Sinhalese and Kenyans, but the correct answer is Saudi Arabians and Ethiopians. And the reason why they are so much genetically similar compared to those other groups is that geographically they are closer than the other groups, meaning closer to one another. And what we do find as far as human populations is that two groups that are closer to each other tend to share more genetic material. As far as question number 4, which species has the most genetic variations? The correct answer would actually be humans, chimpanzees, fruit flies, or elephants. Some people actually think that correct answer is humans, but what science tells us is that humans share a great deal of their genetic code. Remember, similar origins. So, as far as the most genetic variation, we find that scientifically speaking, fruit flies have the most genetic variation, and that's because they have a very short lifespan and they mutate very quickly. So they have more genetic variation than any other animal group. Question number 5. Members of a race can be identified by their blood group, skin color, ancestry, all of the above, or none of the above. Now, this question really gets to the heart of the matter, especially about race. If you remember the definition for racial groups, the groups based on physical appearance, but what I like to say is the assumption of what is physical. I know some people might choose skin color, right? Because if you look a certain way, of course you're part of that racial group, or they might choose ancestry. But the truth of the matter is, none of those factors has anything to do with the racial identification. You can't determine someone's race by blood group just because you're O. doesn't mean you're Asian, and you can't do it by skin color because there are Hispanics that have blonde hair, blue eyes. There are um, Africans that look white. So you can't determine it by physical features, and you can't determine it by ancestry either, because uh, there are some people that have 80% European ancestry, and again, they look just as African as anyone else. So, if none of those things determine racial categories, then why is it in place, and what determines it? uh, when it comes to racial groups, this is what I want you guys to hear, is that about 400 years ago, in the age of exploration, we came across different groups of people. And what we said as a society is we can know something about you just by looking at you. Right? There's different groups of people, there's different types of people based on physical appearance. We chose skin color, right, and certain physical features, but those things were just superficial. They were just stereotypes of what we thought a category was. And you find from group to group, often those things cannot be true. So, uh, in sociology, racial groups is what we call a social construct. And basically, what we mean by that is we made it up as human beings, right? Is a social invention. We could have broken ourselves amongst anything. It could have been hair texture, it could have been height. Those things are just as significant as skin complexion or anything that has to do with racial categories. We just chose these superficial features. Before that, people broke off based on religious groups, they broke off based on tribe or even culture. There is nothing that determines your racial categories from a biological standpoint. In fact, this whole quiz and what science tells us is that the majority of human DNA is extremely similar. There are no subgroups of humans. And so, when it comes to the idea of racism is basically the idea that one, there is subgroups of human, and two, uh, there are races that are more superior to others. So, I just wanted to explain that briefly.